Good evening, South Mississippi. Meteorologist Taylor Graham here with the very latest on what's going on in the tropics. All eyes are on what is still considered Tropical Storm Debby this evening, but I would say here shortly it will be upgraded to a hurricane, and we'll dive into why I think that. The hurricane hunters are currently flying through the system and they are gathering more data on it. Now, thankfully, Debby is not much of our concern here in South Mississippi, although it is moving through the Gulf of Mexico. So let's go ahead and dive into what we're looking at this evening with still what is considered Tropical Storm Debby. As of this time, as of the 7 o'clock update, it is a strong tropical storm with winds of 70 miles per hour. Now at 7 o'clock, the National Hurricane Center reported it was moving to the north at about 12 miles per hour. Based on what I'm looking at, though, it may have been taking a bit more of a northeast jog. It is starting to get a little bit closer there to the Big Bend area of Florida. And as far as I can tell on radar, it's starting to see a little bit of what resembles an eye. We may get that inner core to strengthen a little bit more over the next 6 to 12 hours before making landfall. And it does look like Debby will continue to strengthen as it gets closer to the Big Bend area of Florida. Here we go. Hurricane hunters currently flying through it. These are the hurricane hunters from Biloxi, and flight level winds they found at about 74 miles per hour. Wouldn't be surprised at all with the next update. They go ahead and upgrade Debby to a Category 1 hurricane. Also noticing that the pressure is dropping to about 986 millibars. That's lower than 992, which was reported at 7 o'clock. So a drop in pressure indicates that the system is strengthening, and because it has some very warm water to work with, we continue to expect Debby to strengthen over the next 6 to 12 hours. Tropical storm watches and warnings extend all the way up into Georgia and the Carolinas, mainly South Carolina. At this time, we still have that hurricane warning in effect for a good portion of the Florida Big Bend area. And also, it looks like some of those hurricane warnings now have extended into parts of Georgia, the extreme southern part of Georgia as well. So those areas really going to be keeping a close eye on Debby as we head into the rest of tonight. And chances are Debby is going to be making landfall by very early Monday morning. It may even be moving in overnight tonight. Like I said, it has some very warm water to work with. We are seeing sea surface temperatures in the northern Gulf of Mexico in the mid to upper 80s. No shortage of energy in the water for this system to feed off of. And as of right now, the National Hurricane Center does have Debby strengthening into a Category 1 hurricane before making landfall. Again, either overnight tonight or very early tomorrow morning. It may maintain its hurricane strength as it moves over Georgia, which is why some of those hurricane warnings have been extended farther inland. And then as it moves up into Georgia and maybe skirts by the coast of the Carolinas, it really slows down. Now, if it is able to move back over the open water in the Atlantic, it may strengthen a little bit more. That's why winds are forecast to be a bit higher by Thursday, but there's a lot of uncertainty with that forecast. One thing that is looking more and more uncertain, though, is that with Debby stalling or coming to a slow crawl throughout Georgia into South Carolina and even into North Carolina, this could pose as a significant flooding threat to parts of the southeast and the east coast. In fact, some spots in South Carolina may be picking up upwards of 20 inches of rainfall over the next 3 to 5 days, maybe even locally higher amounts. And of course, that amount of rain could cause some extreme flooding. So even if Debby becomes a weak tropical storm or even a tropical depression at this point, rainfall is going to be a huge issue for parts of Georgia and the Carolinas, and of course parts of Florida as well. But at least with Florida, Debby is moving at a bit more of a steady pace. Again, it will be coming to a crawl by Georgia and the Carolinas, and that's because these upper level winds helping to steer Debby are going to be much weaker. So it's going to just kind of sit around a little bit. Now notice there in South Mississippi, not much rain in the forecast over the next 3 to 5 days. I know some of us today were able to pick up a few inches of rainfall in a short amount of time. There were plenty of us in South Mississippi that didn't get any rain at all. It was just a luck of the draw that some of us got some heavy downpours. But the overall trend for us is showing much drier conditions, and that's because we have some drier air moving in on the backside of what will likely be Hurricane Debby by early Monday morning. And that drier air at least means the humidity is going to be a little bit lower, but the heat is going to be pretty intense over the next few days. We'll take the good with the bad, I guess. And at least we're not going to have to deal with Debby here in South Mississippi. Again, those impacts definitely staying far enough to our east that it's not too much of our concern. But notice here with that yellow color, that indicates some drier air in the atmosphere. That is going to be moving in on the backside of Debby with that northeast wind. So the humidity will be a little bit lower for us, but it is going to be blazing hot. We've got that big ridge of high pressure to our west. That's going to be building in a little bit more over us Monday, Tuesday, and into Wednesday. So our forecast high temperatures, our actual air temperatures this week in South Mississippi, likely going to be getting into the triple digits. That's roughly about 10 degrees above average, even for us here. Now, at least the lower humidity helps us a little bit, but anytime we have heat like that, still very important to stay hydrated and listen to your body if you have to spend much time outside. Zooming in a little bit closer here into Debby, this is our in-house forecast model. Futurecast does show Debby probably making landfall by early Monday morning along the Big Bend area of Florida. And then notice here that as it skirts up the east coast, it's really going to slow down. Lots of heavy rainfall associated with that. Savannah, Charleston probably going to be getting dumped with tons of rain over the next 24 to 48 hours. And Debby is expected to slowly skirt up into North Carolina, it seems like, by Wednesday, Thursday, and even into Friday as it weakens into a tropical depression. It's still going to be causing some significant flooding, it looks like, up the east coast. See here, I'm having a little issue here getting my graphics going. There we go, because I also wanted to talk about what else is going on in the tropics. We don't have any immediate threats to South Mississippi at this time, but we do have another tropical wave that's just to the east of the Lesser Antilles. There is a chance it may be moving into the southern Gulf of Mexico roughly about a week out from now. So plenty of time to watch the system, but it hasn't even developed yet. There are a lot of unknowns at this time, but this is a good reminder that we are far from over or done with hurricane season. And in fact, we're entering the peak of hurricane season by the end of August and into early September. So the tropics definitely ramping up. Again, just emphasizing a lot of time to watch this particular system. It hasn't developed yet, so models all over the place at this time, but we will be watching this tropical wave once it moves into the Caribbean and possibly into the Gulf of Mexico. There's still a lot of unknowns with that. Again, like I said, we typically see a lot more activity throughout the month of August and September, so chances are this is just the beginning. Fingers crossed we don't have to deal with any tropical systems, but Debby is a good example just to be on guard. You know, that's not too far away from us in the Gulf of Mexico, and we do have a ways to go before the end of hurricane season. But at least for the time being here, it's just flat out hot. I mean, we're looking at highs close to 100 tomorrow, Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday will be some of the hotter days of the week. If the humidity is a little bit lower, it may not feel as miserable outside, but let's be honest, highs in the upper 90s to low 100s. Nothing to sneeze at, that's for sure. And we're really not going to be cooling down too much at night. Some inland areas will be able to drop into the low to mid 70s early in the morning, but on the coast it is going to be a little bit warmer. And notice there too, rain chances only at about 20%. Now I know some of us today were able to get some heavy downpours. It's the luck of the draw, but with that drier air moving in on the backside of Debby over the next 4 to 5 days, we're really just not expecting much in the way of rain. So a lot of sunshine in the forecast. If you're going to be spending much time out in the sun, make sure you again stay hydrated, have plenty of sunscreen on hand, because it is going to be blazing hot and it will feel like every bit of August around here in South Mississippi. So coming up at 10 o'clock on the news at WLOX, we will have the latest update on Tropical Storm Debby. At that time, it likely will be Hurricane Debby. We'll get in the latest update from the National Hurricane Center at 10 o'clock. And not only will we have the latest stats as far as its wind and where its direction that it's moving in, but we will also have the latest forecast track. Again, really looks like Debby is going to be much more of an impact, obviously, for the Big Bend area of Florida. It is not a threat to South Mississippi, thank goodness, but we are far from over from the end of hurricane season, so of course we need to be on guard. But for the time being, you can plan on a lot of heat this upcoming week with highs close to 100 and not a lot of rain. So if you were able to get some rain today and maybe you needed that, that's good for you because it just doesn't look like we have much ahead in the forecast. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and prepare for our 10 o'clock news. Hopefully you will join us for that. We'll have the latest on the weather and also the latest on what's going on elsewhere along the coast.